I was watching that clip that came from Sensation Sports, and it said Warren Sapp lawsuit sheriff exposed. Man, the sheriff of this county, it's 20 minutes long, and I got into it, and I don't think I can play it on the show just because it's so long. But this sheriff that Warren is going after, that, you know, obviously the deputies that make on the street decisions work for, he is shady. He's been involved in like affairs. He's been involved in like dirty text messages to the state attorney. I'm gonna watch it today in its entirety. Maybe write down some pickup points because, man, I don't know how this guy, unless nobody in Okeechobee wants to run against him. But I don't know how, you know, like remember Dan, like nobody would run against Mark Ober back in the day,
right?
And he just naturally. And when you're in office 16 years, 4 terms, it just leads to the good old boy network and corruption and having established relationships, and it usually ends up not being healthy. And so this sheriff that's at the center. Because Warren Sapp is suing the sheriff's department, and the head of the sheriff's department is the sheriff, the elected politician as the sheriff, much like Chad Chronister is here, Grady Judd, Bob Gutierrez. You know, those guys aren't corrupt. But boy, you get a corrupt sheriff, and he could really wreak havoc on the system. And I don't understand how somebody, I mean, it would almost be easy pickings to go down there and run against this guy.
Oh, right now it would.
Oh, yeah. So I'm going to watch a little bit of this. Warren Sapp is going to, I wouldn't be surprised that he wins the $20 million. Because it was so egregious as to how they treated him and what they did to him and how they all because he was a black guy. Let me take that back. A lot of which because he was a black guy.
Bubba, do you think that if I had been there and I had said those words to the police, they'd have just backed off, wouldn't they?
Yeah, especially if you were getting out of your Ferrari.
Well, there's nice cars there.
I know. But, I mean, no, I don't think there'd be a problem at all. I think you being a well-dressed and nice-looking Italian man asking the same questions of the deputy. Hey, you said that he was going double the speed limit. I don't know if you wrote that down or not, but you said it, and he wasn't. Now, here's what the cop should have said. You know what? I made a mistake. He wasn't quite going double, but he damn near was. So, you know, I didn't write that on the ticket. I just said it out loud, and I was wrong. That's all you... Because Warren Sapp, if you know Warren Sapp, he ain't going to let... If he has one thing you've done wrong...
Right, one element, one fact, anything, as small as it can be.
One fact that you don't defuse immediately, he is going to just wear you out.
Yep.
And the way the officer could have diffused Warren was saying, Warren, I may have said that he was doubling the speed limit. Indeed, he was not. I did not write that on the ticket. I made a mistake. Now, there's nothing else to discuss here. I'm admitting to you that he was not going double the speed limit. Now, that diffuses Warren because that's everything he was arguing about. That was his starting point to this whole thing that avalanched into him being detained, him being illegally detained, him being illegally transported to the sheriff's department, him being illegally questioned, him being illegally charged with whatever obstruction. And Warren was right. Obstruction usually is a physical thing. Let's say Dan was trying to arrest Seth, and I got between the two and impeded, Dan's a sheriff, Seth's not, and I impeded Dan's direct access to Seth. And Dan told me, sir, step away, or I'm going to arrest you for obstruction. If I did not step away, now I am guilty of obstruction. If I step away, if instead I'm over by where Lummy is, because that's kind of about where Warren was, and Dan's trying to arrest Seth, and I'm where Lummy is, There's no way I'm impeding your investigation. I don't think words can lead to obstruction of a police officer. I don't think. I mean, you can say, Warren could have said, you dirty pig, you absolute corrupt piece of shiz. And as long as it wasn't in an uprising, get the crowd rallied up and churned up, and it turns into a big flash mob, as long as he calmly, you can calmly, under the guise of the First Amendment, you can calmly say anything. And as long as you're at a safe distance away from that police officers, they cannot arrest you for words. Now, if you would say, I'm going to shoot you later tonight, or something like that, potentially, that could be a threat, I guess. But if you're not threatening them, saying, I'm going to whip your ass, or because obviously Warren Sapp has the ability to whip your ass. But Warren never said that. Warren just inquired about why the officer said verbally out loud he was double the speed limit when indeed he was not. The police officer, all he had to say was, Warren, I made a mistake. He wasn't doubling the speed limit. I'm still going to issue him a ticket if you could kindly back up a little bit. But the cop let Sapp get in his head, and they took him. And because they took him for no rightful reason, I think I smell Jay. Jay, it's my understanding that Warren could practically because you're a First Amendment attorney. You have one of the largest, most high-profile First Amendment cases ever to come out of this area. Victory. God, I wish I could find your clothes.
I know, me too.
But anyway, it's my understanding less any physical threat as long as Warren was not riling up the crowd with a megaphone. He could have calmly called him anything.
That's correct. You can video as long as you're not physically impeding. Now, they can instruct you to go to
an area,
a public area, and
right.
If you're there and you're respecting it, then that's within your First Amendment constitutionally protected rights. One of the things we have as citizens of the United States is the ability to confront our public officials, and one of them
isn't it called redressing your government?
Well, that's your ability to go to a trial and redress your grievances.
No,
with your government,
Bubba's right though. What he's saying, we have the right to redress government issues.
Right.
Bubba, you're right. We have the right to criticize and question our politicians.
Right.
That is in the Constitution.
Yes. For sure. But think about the Derek Chauvin situation. He's sitting there choking out the guy, and people are videoing it and telling him to stop and doing all. No one got in trouble. They're videoing it. They're saying you're doing it wrong. I mean, this was, in my opinion, based on the videos that we've watched, which is not all of it, it seemed like a clear violation of his civil rights. He was abiding by instructions. He was merely questioning the validity of the stop after the arrest was completed. It's impossible to impede an investigation that is already completed.
Right.
And he's smart enough to know that. And
knows the law actually better than the sheriff did.
He does. And then the interrogation room, it almost seemed as though he was interrogating the sheriff's investigator.
Well, Warren's going to win this. Everything that we've seen shows Warren to be on the right side of the law.
If he's doing it for the reasons he said, which is it's not about the money, it's about teaching young black men about how to protect themselves and how to force people who are in positions of authority to follow the Constitution, and if it changes policies in this little backward-ass sheriff's district, then that's mission accomplished. And then on top of that, he will get paid. But he wants to take depositions. He wants to get this dude on the record of saying the things that he said.
And you as an attorney, as we've discussed before in other cases, stuff starts getting real when you start taking depos. That's when stuff starts getting real, and that's when people start to get a little nervous, because the person that you're asking the question to, and it's my understanding, Jay, as a counselor, is that you have a lot. There's a lot more liberties in depositions than in court.
Oh, for sure. It's a very relaxed standard. In trial, it's materiality. Something has to be material to something relevant to an issue to prove.
But in
deposition,
but in trial, the stuff that you're using in trial is what you found out through depositions.
Right, because depositions allows you to get, and this is the quote, anything that's reasonably calculated to lead to the discovery of admissible evidence. That is very broad.
I've been with
That
Jay.
is very
I've
broad.
been with Jay before during deposition phase. When Jay asked a question, the person refused to answer. His counsel refused him to answer, and Jay got the judge on the phone and made the guy answer it. And that's really rare because most attorneys won't do that. Most attorneys may bluff that, but they won't do it. Jay did it. And
you don't have to do it very often, but every now and then it's like, okay, I'm going to call you out on it right now.
So when depositions start, all too often that's when settlements happen. Because that shows you the unfiltered case and what the parties truly did, that they can't hide behind their lawyers, they can't hide behind their lawyers posturing when they're out there. Boy, and I've been deposed like 20 times. When you're at the end of that table and they're videotaping it, they got that gray screen behind you, and you got 4 to your left and 2 to your right, 2 on your team and 4 against you. Woo! You got to sit there. They ask a question.
We've been there 1 verse 8.
Yeah.
You and me, buddy.
Yeah. During the Gawker deal, I had Jay.
Yeah.
And then I had 8 Philadelphia attorneys lined up, ready to,
Yep. And then there was how many for Hogan? 2 or 3 were there?
3?
Yeah, because Houston was there too, right?
Yeah.
Houston, Harder, and Turkel.
And Turkel. So Houston, Harder, Turkel for Hogan, 8 for Gawker,
11 lawyers.
and me and Jay.
I went up against 11 lawyers.
And Hogan actually had word with Jay after the proceedings.
He thanked me.
And I remember walking in my car and I said, Jay, I know how this all, based on their questioning, I know how all this went down now.
It literally happened in the deposition in real time. And it was one of the most incredible things to see. And, you are the most capable witness that I've ever seen, because you get on and you tell the unfiltered truth, sort of like you do on the air, but it's you. It's not Bubba the Love Sponge, the on-air personality. And you have the ability to cut through all the crap and come across as a very credible and believable and honest witness when you're unvarnished.
Thank you. And I think that throws people off. I think they're expecting this right here, and they don't get it. They get a polite, slowed down, somewhat more thoughtful version of me, because I just won't answer yes, no, quickly. I take my time. I listen to the question. I form my opinion in my brain, and then I slowly will say it.
Mm-hmm.
Giving my attorneys time to object, giving my attorneys time to maybe read their body language. There's all kinds of different little things.
Which no one does that.
So I love depositions. Most people hate them. I love them when Jay's on the other side of me. You and Todd Foster, Greg Herring, Kevin Hazlett. I've never been in trouble so bad where I had all of you guys there, but man, can you imagine that dream team?
We almost did the pig. I mean, Steve was there. Kevin was there.
Kevin was there. Only thing we were missing was
Phil
Foster.
Campbell was there for you.
No, hold on. So was junior and senior.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was, you had an army. You needed it.
So I am excited for depositions, and maybe there might be some depositions coming soon.
You know why, Bubba? And you're really
things.
pointing to it, is it creates risk. Because once you get the person under oath testifying about all the things you believe in good faith, and you either get them to admit it or to deny it, and either way they're screwed, because they're either lying about something or they're admitting to something.
Especially when they've lied about something for so long and there's no other forum that holds them to a credible answer, and you can just continue the lie because nobody has ever made you tell the truth.
And, they've had protected emails and protected text messages and communications, and then all of a sudden a judge says, no, we're going to get all the text messages and all the emails about what you guys thought about this gentleman, Mr. Sapp. And then they're going to be blown away, because I can only imagine the internal communications at like USAID for the last 5 years. about what all their pet projects were and all the things that they thought no one would ever see the daylight of. And that's the kind of stuff that creates settlements, changes in policy, change in public policy.
How often have you been working a lawsuit for however long? Finally, you set depos. You bring in the star person that you're, that may be part of the deal. And after their depot, you get a call the next day and ask, what's it going to take to settle it? A lot? Probably. Would you say more than 50% of the time, or at 50%?
Right now, there's been a little bit of a change in the law, but it happens often. And, usually in really big cases like a medical malpractice case, I took an emergency room doctor, Depo, who we had good faith basis to say failed to diagnose
Was
my
Dan there?
13-year-old. He was not.
Oh.
Failed to diagnose my 13-year-old girl who died. And so I took his deposition.
So you had a 13-year-old girl die.
Yep, in the ER.
And you took the emergency room doctor's depot.
Correct.
And did the insurance company call you the next day and say, what's this going to take?
The next day, I strategically did a proposal for settlement for the amount of the policy, the full amount. And that's a 30-day, you got 30 days. And at about day 21, the lawyer called me, who had been a real difficult person to deal with. And she's like, Jay, hey, what's going on? Can we still accept that? And I said, of course you can. And then I took my foot off the throat of the doctor. She's like, okay, well, we'll file a formal acceptance of it. And I said, my brother's a doctor. My father's a doctor. I don't think that your guy tried to intentionally kill anybody. So why do you need to admit anything in the record? Why don't you we'll do it,
make it go
off
away.
the record.
Just
You
make
don't
it
have
go
to
away.
admit, to the proposal for settlement for that number on the record. And she was like, you'll do that? And I said, of course I will.